Warning. You are entering a restricted area. Return to where you came from, or be destroyed.
You're heading your way towards the useless nerdy knowledge. Please do not go any further. If you will not comply, you will hear a nerd ramble.
Nerd alert!
Get those nerds! 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 Nerds!
Exterminate!
Go ahead, make my day.
Bazinga!
I'll be back.
Hello, fellow podcast listeners. This is Useless Nerdy Knowledge, and happy Halloween! My name is Ben Walker, and I am the king of Halloween. Okay, maybe I'm not, but anyway, I figured that for this week's episode, and basically for the final day in October, of course, good old Halloween day, I figured I would talk about my least favorite horror movies. Now, of course, you guys probably already saw or listened to my last episode of my favorite horror movies. Now I'll talk about my top 10 least favorite horror movies. Now I'll just get right into it. So at number 10 here I have Friday the 13th Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan. I've already discussed this on my episode of the Friday the 13th franchise, but basically with this one, it was just so boring. Like, the name alone I would consider to be clickbait the movie. Now, I understand the original script really had a lot of scenes for Jason in Madison Square Garden, on the Empire State Building, and all this other different stuff, which would be really cool. But the fact that the budget couldn't handle it was just really upsetting. And it literally takes like an hour and 4 minutes for Jason to actually get to New York City. And when he finally does, there are a couple cool scenes of it, but it's still a really disappointing movie. Overall, it's just really, really bad. Literally in the entire hour that Jason even does anything, he's just on a cruise ship with a bunch of graduates that basically are heading to New York, and overall it's just not that great of a movie for me. It's not really one I would recommend. Number 9 for me would be Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers. Now this is basically a sequel to Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers, after the bad pandering of Halloween 3, Season of the Witch. Now Halloween 4 was basically received very well at the box office, so they literally rushed this movie into production less than a year later, and out came out this stinkfest of Halloween 5. Now, the fact that this movie is so bad, it's just literally a mess, because the entire script was literally being written during production. And that's never a good sign. That's the thing I never want to do, is to rush the production. Like, I don't care how good the box office says, don't ever rush your production, because in order to make something good, it takes time. And lots of movies fail from this, because both Son of Kong and Child's Play 3 suffered from it because they were rushed and didn't have that much of a budget. And they ended up being crap. So yeah, Halloween 5 is not really one I would recommend. Mainly because the entire plot is dumb, the whole literally half-assed Thorn stuff was written in there, and the whole black guy in black was just like written in there half-assed and out of the blue, and with the whole cliches of, like, you know, fake scares, they drag on for like a very long time, over and over and over, and it's just terrible. And here at number 8 we have Alien 3. Now, of course, in this series you might know that lots of threequels suffer from what I call here Alien 3 syndrome. And what do I mean by that exactly? Well, this is basically the movie that refers to the whole Alien 3 syndrome, of course. And by this, I mean any characters that came from the last movie are basically spat in the face of the movie that came after it. So, in the last movie, Aliens, there were lots of cool characters that you loved and rooted for, and you wanted to see stay alive from the last one. Like, you wanted to see Ellen live, you wanted to see Newt live, and you wanted to see Hudson and all these other warrior characters live from the last movie because they were cool, they were badass. But Alien 3 literally kills them all off in the first few minutes, and Ellen Ripley is the only one left. And that's why I really don't like Alien 3. Of course, I would consider Alien vs. Predator Requiem to be the worst, but I don't know if I would really count this because I don't know. For some reason, I just feel like that it's just better to include Alien 3 on this list. Now, the rest of the movie is fine, I guess, but I figured that with Newt being literally killed, it really just kills the movie for me, really. Like, it's basically on a prison planet with, like, no guns, no weapons, no nothing. But there's one more xenomorph that, and in fact, there's, like, two different versions where it's like the xenomorph either bursts from a dog or the xenomorph bursts from an ox. It's like in the special edition or whatever the heck, it's like it bursts from an ox and it has more CGI effects to the xenomorph, which, I don't know. I haven't seen it. I've only seen the original one where he bursts from the dog, but it's still not a movie I would really recommend. But if you want to continue the Alien saga, go ahead. And meanwhile, go ahead and watch Alien Resurrection while you're at it. And of course, as I mentioned with threequels, you'll see about probably three more threequels that'll come up on this list. But anyway, next we have at number 7, Scream 3. Now, of course, the first two Scream movies are pretty good. The first one was really good because of how it had self-aware humor in it, and it had lots of self-aware rules of like the whole horror movie genre of like its cliches and all this stuff. But it was still really good. And of course, the sequel was okay, not great, I don't think, but it was still okay. Um, but of course, with Scream 3, it really dies down because there's like this whole voice box where you can copy anyone's voice, and I found that to be a real buzzkill and for it to make no sense in this entire series. The fact that the first two Scream movies took place actually making it feel like an actual real life event because they literally talked about different horror movies. They talked about Halloween, they talked about Friday the 13th, and they talked about Nightmare on Elm Street, of course. And those felt real, like they took place in an actual real world. But as soon as this whole plot point comes into of this magic voice box that can copy anyone's voice, just really kills it and makes it feel really unrealistic. Not to mention the fact that they had a freaking Jane Silent Bob cameo in there. It's funny, but it still doesn't make the movie any better. So, yeah, Scream 3 isn't really one I recommend, even though there's like a fourth Scream movie and, of course, a fifth Scream movie coming out after. And then number 6 for me, of course, as I mentioned with Halloween 5, Child's Play 3 was rushed into production. So Child's Play 2 is probably one of my most favorite movies in the entire Child's Play franchise. Basically received pretty well at the box office, and literally less than a year later, Child's Play 3 was rushed into production. And what do you think happened? The movie sucked. It literally takes place like, let's see, 8 years after Child's Play 2, and basically Andy this time is at a military summer camp, and of course Chucky's still hunting him down and all this stuff. But the thing that sucks about it is just that it's very boring and uninteresting. It's mainly a movie that I skip entirely after watching Child's Play 2. And the fact that it has so many different cliches of like military camps that we've already seen, and not to mention that it's already mocking different scenes from Full Metal Jacket, really, really kills it. So yeah, Child's Play 3 is not really one I would recommend. So next at number 5, we have Jason Goes to Hell: The Final Friday, which is the ninth movie in the Friday the 13th series. So after Jason Takes Manhattan really bombed at the box office, Paramount decided to sell the rights to of Friday the 13th to New Line Cinema, which also held the rights to the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. So they considered that this one was going to be the final Friday after this was released in 1993. And I remember seeing the trailer for it in a VHS, and it looked really cool. And I was like really excited to see this. Like as soon as I got it on DVD, I was like, "Oh wow, this is going to be so cool. This is going to be so great." No, it's it's not at all. Now the first like couple of minutes are pretty entertaining to watch, but the rest of it is just terrible because, as I mentioned before, um, Jason's like possesses all these different people with like his weird spirit tadpole thingy or whatever, and it's just a huge mess. I'm not going to get all into it. You can look it up for yourself, or watch my episode of Useless Nerdy Knowledge on the Friday the 13th franchise, so that way you can get all caught up. But at least the ending is interesting. Had people talking a bit, but still not that great. Next at number 4 is Exorcist 2: The Heretic. Now, of course, with the very first Exorcist movie, it's very phenomenal and very good for what it is. And even though it may be a bit outdated, and of course back then it was considered the scariest movie ever made, it could be a bit scary, but it's just more of a drama for me. It's not entirely scary, even though there are a couple things that would be scary. It's still good. But with The Exorcist 2, the fact that this director hated the first one really kills this entire movie right here, because Exorcist 2 is just a complete mess of what the hell did I just watch? Like, it's like way, way, way different from the first one. A very different tone, a very different type of plot, I get, if there even is a plot. But it's just really weird. Like, it has James Earl Jones and it has Linda Blair that returns from the first one where she's a lot older. But still, overall, this is just an absolute mess of a movie, and definitely one I would skip. I would rather recommend watching The Exorcist 3, which I would definitely say is a better, superior sequel to be a second one. But even though it's the third one, I still think that Exorcist 3 is pretty good. And number 3 for me is Halloween: The Curse of Michael Myers, which is the sixth movie that comes after Halloween 5. Now, I don't know where to begin with this. Of course, I've already mentioned this in my Halloween franchise episode, but this is just an absolute mess. It's just terrible. And the whole entire Thorn cult thing, and the fact that there had to be two different versions of like a producer's cut and an original theatrical cut, just really kills the movie for me. It's just really bad, all over the place, makes no sense, and it's just bad. It's just absolutely terrible. Now, I understand people think that Halloween Resurrection or Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 is like the worst one, but for me, I would think that Halloween: The Curse of Michael Myers is the worst one, just for the fact that it's terrible all over the place and it's an absolute mess. Speaking of which, at number 2 is Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. Now, of course, this isn't to be confused with Halloween 2 that was released in 1981, which is a follow-up to the first Halloween. This is Halloween 2 that was made by Rob Zombie, which is a sequel to his remake. Now, of course, this isn't basically a remake to Halloween 2. This is his own sequel that takes place after his remake. And this one is like really dark, twisted, messed up, bloodthirsty, and makes no sense, and it sucks. It downright sucks. With the whole Michael Myers seeing his mother in like a white dress with a white horse plot makes no sense, and it's just stupid. And the fact that you don't hear the Halloween theme at all in the entire movie until like the end credits, and with Michael Myers where you see more of his face and how he looks more like a hobo, it's like, what the hell was Rob Zombie smoking when he made this? Who knows, and who cares, because this movie bombs. And finally, at number 1, and I know that there are a lot more worse Halloween movies and horror movies out there, but this is just my current opinion. It might change over time, who knows, but for me, this one would be Leatherface, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3. This movie just sucks! I don't know what else to say about it other than it's like all these different people going to prom. And again, this was a movie I saw a long time ago, and I really was bored with it. And the whole entire plot is that like there's all these different teenagers, I think, going to prom. They get stuck or something in their car, and they run out in the dark, and it's super, super dark. And it's just terrible. It downright sucks, and it's not, again, not one I recommend. Now, even though I put this at number 1, I am aware that there are worse horror movies out there, like a lot worse. There's like 10 zillion Jaws shark ripoff movies and all this other different stuff. And of course, with Full Moon Productions that has like so many crappy horror movies, I understand, but I feel like these are ones that I would on the list that I would say that are worse only because they've probably been released in theaters. That's probably the only reason. I'm not talking about like direct-to-video type of movies. I feel like with this list, it's more of things that were actually released theatrically. So, yeah, that's kind of my own list for this of my least favorite horror movies. And I figured it was just an okay type of thing to kick off the Halloween day, basically. So, what were your guys' least favorite horror movies, or your like movies you didn't think were that good? What do you think? Let me know, and hopefully you enjoyed this episode of Useless Nerdy Knowledge, or got a bit of an opinion, or maybe a bit of a chuckle. So stay safe during Halloween, be good people, and just keep away from the boogeyman, because he might be out there. Thanks, guys. Thank you very much for listening. Have a happy Halloween.